I'm Seth Achilios King. I'm a shoutcaster who's been working professionally now for I have to do the math in my head, like around like 10 years, something like that. But I've been casting for a bit longer than that, and major titles that I've worked on include League of Legends for the LCK out here in Korea, Overwatch Apex League, as well as the Overwatch League currently, and then of course Valorant VCT.
Wow, there you go. The resume builder. That's what they call you with the amount of time. Well, yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of titles under your belt at this point. Like 10 years. Has it been 10 years since you started?
Since I started
Like
and
you
started
first got
making
paid?
money off of it, I guess technically for me being like full-time casting,
Yeah.
no. So that was a bit of a Twitter profile comment that I made there
Okay,
saying like
that's
I'm a
good. No, I
professional
like that.
caster for 10 years. Um, but since I started making money off of it, it's been about 10 years. But full-time working, that would be now 8 years.
What was your first paid gig then? Was it League?
Yeah. I did absolutely nothing but League of Legends until a couple months after I joined OGN and was working on the LCK because they needed me to fill in for I think it was Wolf for Heroes of the Storm. So it was MOBA to MOBA. I knew all the characters and I just kind of went out there and just talked about like lore that whole broadcast. And I was casting alongside Artosis. But that was like basically the first time that I ever commentated another game. Prior to that, since I kind of got started around 2011, 2012-ish. Um, that was entirely just League of Legends. So I had done nothing throughout that entire stretch, but just try to get better and better at casting League. And my first ever paid gig was, I think a friend of mine sent it to me because he knew that I had been doing it as a hobby. And there was a PC Bong or a LAN center in North Jersey, right outside of New York, in a town called Fort Lee. Um, that was prior to the pandemic basically like the last PC bong that I knew of in the whole state, and unfortunately the pandemic ended up killing it like it killed so many other things. Um, but they were looking for people to come along and cast because they were just doing like a local tournament. So it was going to be a bunch of people coming in from New York to compete. Everybody's got 5 stack teams, and it was just going to be like a whole day of matches and whatnot. And I reached out to them and I said, "Hey, I'm really interested in casting. Here's a couple things that I've worked on. Here's some VODs." And they were just like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Can you drive up here?" I was like, "Of course." So me and two of my friends got in my car. We drove, I think it was about 2.5 hours from where I lived in Jersey to get all the way to the north side of the state, um, and proceeded to cast for about 14 hours consecutively
Oh
because
yeah.
we had a bunch of server issues, and we had like breaks and whatnot thrown in, but we were widely just kind of like sitting there on camera. I don't remember the name of the guy that I cast with, and I feel really bad
Oh
about that.
man.
He was a
Rest in
somewhat known
peace.
figure back then because I think he had done some Heroes of New Earth stuff,
Oh right, okay.
um, and then maybe some like 1.6 or source stuff, like just like minor like local land type shit. Um, but I cast with him. It was my first time meeting him. That's also where I met Tempest Rob, the famed esports photographer who's won multiple awards.
Oh
He was
yeah.
actually at that event, so that was the
Wow.
first time that I got to meet him as well. Um, and at the end of the day, because the event ended up going on so long because we had server issues, the PC Pong owners said, "We can't not pay you. You sat in front of that camera the entire time." So they cut me a check, and it was for $110.
Yes.
Was
Nice.
basically what
That's
they
big.
could afford to pay me. And I mean, it was enormous in my brain at the time
Yeah.
because I was like, "Holy shit! Like, I've never gotten paid for this before." It's always just been a hobby. It had always just been something that I really enjoyed doing, and then that opened the pathway to my greed. No,
Agree.
it was such a rewarding feeling, and I kind of felt bad taking it because I think the buy-in was like $10 per player, and then, granted, there was a good amount of teams and whatnot, but then there was most of that was obviously into the prize pool. Everybody who's playing the tournament isn't playing for game time on those PCs and whatnot, so it's like their overall take from the tournament isn't that huge, and it felt like that 110 was a pretty significant amount, but I was incredibly tired and also very gracious at the end of it. So when I that whole drive home, which was probably at like 3, 4 in the morning by the time I got back to my house, was really gratifying.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was able to just kind of start doing more stuff online that was willing to pay.
The $110 for 14 hours, less than $10 an
Mhm.
hour. Oh my
Oh yeah.
god, that does remind me of
Tell you
kind
what,
of
it was better than my job at Radio Shack.
yeah. Well, rest in peace, Radio Shack. Seth didn't cause the downfall. Promise. That's
Yeah.
crazy because it reminds me of like that's literally every beginner caster story. Yeah, I was on camera for like maybe 27 hours and I got paid $2. Like it's quite insane. And it felt the way you described it, it felt like they just saw your resume, looked at it for like half a second, were like, okay, sounds good to me. Just like
I think they
we
just
need
needed
somebody.
somebody.
Yeah, we just need somebody. So do you want to like do it? Like that was kind of how it was. I feel like those kind of spots now would be instantly to fucking 7,000 applicants at a time.
I mean, the unfortunate thing is, I think these days you don't even see those opportunities nearly as much. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, the pandemic aside, I think even without that, the amount of local LAN events or people who are running tournaments online, um, it's so reduced compared to how it used to be. Like my entire start in League of Legends, aside from like my first ever cast, um, when I had just really kind of started grinding and having weekly commentary work, it was entirely through community run tournaments. Like there was one called Tower Dive TV. There was one called like LOL. It was just called like LOL tourneys or something like that.
Right.
And basically, it was entirely just community stuff, and they would just do brackets of silver players, gold players, diamond, whatever. And every day, for maybe like 4 days a week, they would have like a different bracket, and they had a bunch of different people that worked on these. And that's kind of where I got my start. And these things used to really be run with a good amount of frequency. I think like I remember casting for two of these different tournament series, and there was still like three other ones that were going on. And granted, the viewership was never significant, but you would sometimes get 90 to 100 people if you had like a diamond bracket or something like
Not
that
bad.
going on. So it felt like you were, casting to a fairly sizable crowd because everybody is starting out. I mean, that's where I also met briefly, but didn't get to work with Pyrotechnics, who then went on to
Oh,
cast for the LPL
yeah.
as well as the Australian League, and then into the what is now the LEC and whatnot. So he had also kind of started around that same time doing the very same one. I think it was LOL tourneys that we had both worked on, and that's just kind of how people had to make their rounds back then. Then there was the rise of challenger tournaments because a lot of teams still had their academy and their challenger teams like Cloud9, and though they were sponsored by companies like Alpha Draft and all of these just bankrupt bullshit money laundering services. Um, but they were putting on these tournaments that were really fun, that had a higher level competition from what we were used to doing, and they also did pay. Granted, not fantastic rates, but it was better than $110 for 14 hours, so I wasn't complaining at all.
Yeah, it's also better working than working at fucking Radio Shack, like you said. Like, come on now. Come
I mean,
on.
I was doing all of this while working at Radio Shack for the most
Hey,
part.
double pay. Easy money. Easy money.
Yeah.
How big is okay? Not American, by the way. Obviously, never seen a Radio Shack in my goddamn life. What the fuck's radio? What's the deal with it, huh? You just sell like radio parts and
No,
not
well,
machine parts, but like parts
that's
for
kind of what it
PCs
used
and
to
shit.
be. That's that. I mean, it used to just be basically like a hardware supply store and like cutting edge electronics and whatnot. It was a store that
Right.
really grew in the '80s,
Yep.
because that was at the peak time of people playing around with things like ham radio, train sets, fiddling with different electronics and whatnot. And it was just a place where you could go in and you could buy a fuse to fix your like tube television for a nickel. Um,
Oh, okay,
and
sure.
then as the years went on, obviously, like with cell phones and whatnot coming into the picture, high def televisions, they started trying to work with that. They tried to keep up with the times. So of course they did their own thing, where it's like the Radio Shack phone plan on their network, which was just a piggyback network off of like T-Mobile or Boost Mobile or something like that. I think it was Cricket Wireless actually. And then
Crick. The fuck are you
yeah,
saying?
and
You're
then
just
of
saying
course like they had
words.
like the Radio Shack credit card that they tried to get you to push to every
Ooh.
single customer. So it was a company that like at the time when they started was enormous, but they
Yeah.
couldn't keep up. They couldn't evolve. It's kind of like Pizza Hut in the States, where like
Oh, they are
no one wants to go to
failing.
a fucking yeah, no
Yeah.
one wants to go to a fucking restaurant and sit down and eat pizza
Yeah.
anymore, unless you're like in a nice pizzeria in New York,
Yeah.
where a
For
homeless
sure.
guy is gonna flip you off and piss on the side of the building. Like that's where I want to go sit down and eat a pizza. I don't want to sit inside of a Pizza Hut and eat a pizza.
I watched a video. I don't know if you watched the same one, but I watched a video the other day of someone talking about the downfall of Pizza Hut. And it's basically
It's
describing what you're saying.
Sunny V2 or whatever his name is on
Might
YouTube. I
be.
saw.
Oh, no, it was. Yeah, it was Sunny V2. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just the downfall of fucking Pizza Hut. And apparently
that's
there's
why
a
it was in the
subreddit.
forefront of my brain.
Yeah, dude. I'm kind of shocked. I was a little bit surprised that Pizza Hut started failing, but you think about it for half a second. You're like, well, no one gives a shit about pizza. You know what I mean? Like, sure,
Yeah.
like you can make pizza at home. It's pretty easy. I'm not paying fucking $20 for a fucking pizza. Fuck
It's
that.
I think that if genuinely if they could transition into like a bar style, I know that this is supposed to be about like casting and all this shit,
Oh,
but
I
like
know.
if
Whatever.
Pizza
It doesn't
Hut could
matter.
transition into almost like a bar bistro style place where you could
Sure.
serve
Yeah.
alcohol, then I think that you would actually see a good amount of success, because no young kids want to go to Pizza Hut anymore. That's what we
Yeah. No
used to
one
do.
gives a
Like
shit.
growing up in America, one of the things that I don't know if you had this in the UK, but like they used to do things where it was like I forget what they called it, like book fairs and shit, and like they would encourage kids to read, and like depending on how many books
Oh,
you
yeah.
read
Yeah.
during a
Yeah.
period of time, they
For
would
sure.
stamp this thing, and
Mhm.
then if you collected like 12 stamps, you got a free pizza.
Yeah.
So I read like a motherfucker when I was a kid, because I was like,
Free pizza.
mom's gonna take me to Pizza Hut, and I'm gonna have that stuffed crust, and it's gonna be amazing. But now the youth, they were like, what the fuck is a book? You know, why would I
Yeah.
want to go sit down somewhere with my parents and eat pizza? Um, so yeah,
It's just
they need to
no one wants
adjust.
to do that. People just want to eat pizza at home, bro. Like majority of
Make it a
people just want to
pub,
stay at home. Or
make it a
yeah,
pub, make it a bistro.
yeah.
Boom, customers.
Go to a place. What do you want to do? You probably want to like drink and like have fun with friends, and then oh, there's fucking pizza here, sick. And plus, the ROI for drinks is way higher than food.
Oh yeah,
Like way higher. That's where you make most of your
of
money.
course.
So yeah, that
There
makes
was a
sense.
there's a great place. I don't know if it's actually still alive, but we used to go when my friend was studying at NYU, called the Pizza Pub in New York, right in
Okay.
Manhattan. And I tell you what, that place fucking slayed. So I'm telling you, Pizza Hut, the model works. $5 for a slice and a draft beer can't
Oh,
be beat.
that would go
Incredible.
crazy. Yeah, it
Exactly.
really would go hard. Oh my god. The thing is, I think Pizza Huts are it's like KFC, right? And 7-Elevens, they're franchised. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
So I guess maybe you could do it if you got an alcohol license. I guess it depends, but yeah, that
that's
franchise
definitely the most difficult part.
is failing, like through and through. You don't have Pizza Hut
Mhm.
in Korea, right?
Oh no, we do.
Do you?
And actually, I think it does fairly well over here comparatively, but that's
Oh,
also like the standards of pizza is very different in Korea, obviously, compared to the
yeah,
States. But at the same time, it's always been delivery based in Korea. Like Pizza Huts here, like they do have
yeah.
like small amounts of tables where you can go sit in and eat. But because Korea is so delivery focused on a lot of different food types, especially pizza, Pizza Hut just immediately was, just a delivery service out here. Whereas in the States, it was something that took a
It was a
very
restaurant.
long time to adjust.
Yeah, yeah. That's one thing I love about Korea is you go on Yogyo, the fucking delivery food app, you can order anything. Literally anything you want. And in Korea at least, or in Seoul at least, like there is every kind of food that you could possibly want in I don't know, maybe like a 5-10 mile radius, and they'll just deliver. And
Yeah,
it's just so
I mean,
cheap.
it depends on where you live, but if you're in any
Yeah.
really major spot, you're set.
Yeah.
You're so
It's
fucking set.
it is ridiculous. Let's move on to that then. What year did you move to Korea? Was it 2016?
It'd be
Is that right?
2016.
2016.
We're coming up on that anniversary. I think it was right around February 24th was when I flew out of LA, I think,
Oh, okay.
to move here. So yeah, it's been a good long while.
And a longer while now, of course. If you guys didn't know, Seth's now married. So, congratulations.
I
The wedding
mean,
was beautiful. And you've been married for a
Well, thank
while.
you.
The
Yes.
ceremony obviously was,
That's all I was gonna say. It was,
yeah,
I've
he's been married
legally
for a
been
while.
married for 2.5 years, so.
Yeah, and then now obviously you can stay in Korea for as long as you want without need of a visa or anything like that, which
Yep.
is like the biggest pain for anybody that lives in a foreign country. Is like, how do I just do I have to marry somebody? What's going on with the visas? So like getting a green card is a
Oh,
free pass.
it's the biggest stress point, I think, for most people. Like that, and when you're just kind of doing like general negotiations for your job.
Yeah,
But when you're living in a foreign country, getting the visa, and of course, like you're very well versed in this situation as well, living in America.
unfortunately.
Um, it's such a big stress point. And I remember right around the time that um, it was 2022 when we were 2020 rather, when we were going right into the pandemic and everything. Um, Blizzard was trying to figure out how to renew the visa type that I had at the time, and they were having struggles with it. Um, and I ended up having to give up my visa, give up my ID that I had had since I moved here, because I had to exit the country. I went to Osaka for basically 20 hours. I was just staying in a hotel, resetting my visa status, coming back in as a tourist, which would buy me another 90 days. And that was basically the point. I remember sitting in my hotel room in Osaka, while I think Bren and Wolf were also in Osaka, or they were in Tokyo. I don't remember exactly where, but they were also in Japan. And Wolf was resetting his visa. Bren was on his vacation. They went out together and were hanging out with a bunch of people who were attending like Evo Japan. And I was sitting in my hotel room, and then I get an email that's like frantically like, "We need you to come to the U.S. within the next 4 days because this COVID situation is getting fucked up, and we don't think
Wow.
that we can do the APAC League the way that we were planning." So they're like, "We need to get you out of Asia before they shut everything down." I'm like, "Oh God!" Like, I just lost my visa. I'm going to be re-entering for maybe like 2.5, 3 days maximum, and I need to explain all of this to my, who is then my girlfriend, that I need to leave, and I don't know when I'm coming back. So glad I don't have to worry about visa stuff anymore.
Yeah, COVID fucked so much around like visas and where you were based, where you were living. I guess
Hmm.
yeah, for you, literally bouncing around Korea, Japan. Now we have to go to the US, back to Korea. Like now, obviously you don't have to worry, which is great. I arrived and then COVID shut down. And I already had my visa, so I was a bit fortunate in that regard. But it was, yeah, it was a messed up time for everybody. I do want to bring up, by the way, our first interaction. Not interaction on Twitter or anything like that, because I haven't got a
Hmm.
fucking clue how I started talking to you. But I guess
You would have emailed me and asked me for a VOD review.
emailed, yeah, or like maybe DM'd on Twitter, not sure. Yeah, one of the two.
One
One
of
of the
those
two.
two.
But the first time I came to Korea, for some fucking reason, I have this weird memory where like I remember very specific things about people or like very
Mhm.
specific interactions. Like I didn't bring it up in Astro's one that I did the other day, but I remember one of my first ever games was with on Junkertown, and there was a cheater on the enemy team, and our team went wrecking ball, so Astro could get like a 200% hit shot rating on Widowmaker, just shooting it. Yeah, and because we were trying to draw and we were just AFKing basically. That I don't know why I remember that, and I remember specifically meeting you, Sungsu, exit 103, one of those two, walking up the stairs, and then we went to International with Papa Smithy, right around the corner from Sungsu exit, and you
Exit
walk up that
one.
little exit one, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know why I remember that. You were waiting at the top. I fucking walked up, and there you go. That was the first time we met because
Yeah.
I was taking a trip to Korea just because I was in Singapore at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you were already in Asia and then you flew over.
Yeah, that
Yeah, I
like
mean, now
I
that
don't know
you
why I remember
describe it,
that.
it's coming back to me more and more.
Yeah,
I also, not necessarily for everything, but for some things I do have that really weird, just super detailed, like almost like Sherlock Holmes brain where
yeah,
you're like
it's fucked up.
rewind in your fucking head. Um, I have that a lot more with like like esports moments,
Yeah,
because sometimes it comes up when I don't even like expect it to, and like it won't ever be in my like conscious brain, but suddenly it jumps to the forefront. So there's been like times where I'm casting and I'm like, oh, this reminds me of time from like Apex Season 3 when Rhino's Gaming Titan was like
yeah,
playing Snap and
exactly.
like this thing happened. And it's just like what just happened to me? Go into my mind palace for a fraction of a second, pull out all of these memories. Um, But yeah, I do remember that now that you're talking about it. Yeah, we did go to International Barbecue,
It
and
was
then
the
I would
best.
assume after that we probably ended up at Convent or something
Yep.
like that. Which, rest in peace, Convent. I miss that place.
Dude, I
But
every time I walk past it now, I'm like, man, I'm so fucking sad. The Convent, for people that don't know, is this little underground bar that
it was our
like
local.
all the people that lived in Korea, a lot of the casters and shit like that would go to all the time. And obviously when you go visit, that's where you go to drink and hang out and shit like that. And it also did $8 for a pint of G&T. Bless up. That shit went
Not
crazy.
even a, I mean, not even a, not a pint, a liter.
Oh well, yeah, no, yeah, a liter.
It
Yeah, a
was a
liter of
liter
G&T
of, and you
for
could get any
$8.
cocktail served in a liter if you wanted to. It
Yeah.
was like $10 for a Long Island. It was fucking.
Dangerous.
It's amazing that none of
Dangerous.
us died or got severely alcohol poisoned at any point. I mean, not even
Well,
severely. None of us got alcohol poisoned at any point during that stretch.
yeah, which is
Because that place was there
ridiculous.
for years.
I'm really sad it closed. What happened to the? I kind of know what happened to the bar, but like the owners and everything like that, are they open a new one?
So I know that the owner is looking to open up a new place, so he's been trying to find a location. He was gonna wait until after like the holiday season. I haven't caught up with him in a little bit, so I probably should send him a message, and see if he's kind of landed on anything. But I mean, he's just been a bar owner for as long as I've been in Korea, and beyond that even. So he's probably been in the business for 12 to 10, 12 years. So that's just what his focus is what he wants to do. So I think he's been looking for a new venue in a good spot, and then he wants to open up another spot. But yeah, I don't know. It's just such a shame. But that's one of the things that can happen, obviously, when you're just
Yeah,
renting a position, as the landlord might say, "Hey, I want you to get the fuck out,"
yeah.
and there's not that much notice. So
I mean, it's pretty densely packed in Seoul. Like there's just little places everywhere. It's just so tiny. The amount of people is ridiculous. So yeah, I
you know,
obviously landlord, the people who control the land in Seoul control the fucking economy. Like
oh, it's yeah.
it's ridiculous. I did want
If
to
you own
touch
an
on
apartment here, you have a
yeah,
retirement fund almost.
yeah, like it's insane. You'd expect a lot of people that have been in Korea for a while. Obviously, I can imagine at one point you guys want to own a place of your own, not like rent. But
Ooh.
obviously, that's quite a way down the line, and it feels like it's almost impossible to do that if you live in Seoul. Like to get like a decent central Seoul spot or like a place where because you're not even in central Seoul. You're like slightly on the outskirts, and even then, it's like how the fuck are you supposed to
It's
own a place?
Yeah, the inflation on the housing market out here has been a nightmare. I have been quite good about putting money aside,
Yeah.
uh, which is impressive considering that when I moved here, I had maybe $200 in my savings account. So for the time that I've been here, I think that I've done a decent job, as far as like saving for the future. Because like you mentioned, like I really, really want to own the place that I live in. I
Yes.
hate renting.
Yeah.
It's definitely the cheapest option, but I really despise not being able to do whatever I want with the place. I want a place that's larger. So like I really want to buy a spot where I don't have to worry if I'm going to be moving in 2 years and whatnot. Because obviously, Sammy and I at some point in the near future we're going to look to start a family and whatnot.
Yeah.
So yeah, having that security of not having to relocate while you have a kid, yada yada yada, like it would be great to just kind of alleviate all that pressure. Um, there are it really comes down to getting lucky for the most part is
Right.
what it's looked like, because I have known people who have gotten incredible um apartments, like monstrously sized ones, for so much cheaper than you would ever anticipate. I had a meeting with one of the or two of it was the owner, and I think like one of his directors or whatever, that runs RRQ, which is one of the teams that's joining the VCT Pacific League. So I went out to dinner and had drinks with those guys. Really awesome dudes. And they were telling me about their team house that they got, which is in like Yoido, I think. And so it's right across the bridge from like the Hapjeong area. So you're right
Oh
near
yeah.
Hongdae. It's not far from the studio. So it's a really nice area. They got this massive place that's probably the way that my friend described it, because he actually went there, it's about 6 times the size of my current apartment, which I live in a 3 bedroom.
Wow,
And
that's
they
big.
he said it's about 6 times the size of my apartment. They're paying 3 a month for it and only had to put 10K down, which is insane.
What? That
Yeah.
is cheap. My
Yes.
God. Okay, for people that are
I
listening,
should
do the
explain that.
the conversion obviously a little bit wacky. So if you want to give a quick summary of like conversion, ten
Well, I mean,
thousand.
usually like, well, it's like 10 million won would be in the current market a little under $9,000 as a
Okay,
deposit.
there you
But
go.
the way that deposits work in Korea is that you put down a very large sum um, on a place. 10 is that's your usual like 2 bedroom kind of place. But if you're
Okay.
getting a really nice place, especially if it's in like a named um, you know, town area or like an apartment series. Like I live in an apartment series. The deposits can be, tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that you put down, and that money comes back to you when you move out. Um, so the landlord basically takes and they can use it as an investment to refurbish other properties, to buy other properties, whatever they want. But when you move out, they have to pay that money back to you. But you basically have to put that money down up front.
Yeah.
So to get a place as large as that, as this team house is, for only 10, it's batshit insanity.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I would have
insane.
expected that they would have had to, for especially to only pay 3 grand a month, around 3 grand a month, not counting like utilities and internet, and obviously but to have to pay something like that, like it would
That's
have to be,
ridiculous.
you're talking about like 500, $700,000 is the
Yeah.
deposit, normally for a place like that. So
That is absurd. Like, yeah, it just comes down to kind of getting lucky, I suppose. Because, yeah, I'm the same as you. Fuck renting. Although, casting economy, kind of fucky. So I
yeah,
talked about this fucking Mitch and shit like that. But, yeah, it's all wacky. It's all fucked up because it's kind of hard to
yeah.
cement yourself in a place, especially when you're freelance and stuff. So, a bit more difficult, I'd say. I want to jump back right to your first year in Korea because I don't think I've ever spoken to you
Okay.
about this ever. And I want to know what your first year in Korea was like because obviously completely foreign country and it's not like
Yeah.
a British person going to like Europe or anything like that where a lot of Europeans speak English. Like a lot of Koreans speak English, but also the language is also completely different in terms of just the characters in the alphabet. Like, you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
a bit more difficult. So I wanted to run me through what your first year in Korea was like.
um hmm. It was, I would say, saying that it was rough wouldn't be fair because I had so much help um from people that I am eternally grateful to. Mostly, the original OGN crew in Papa Smithy, Monte Cristo, Doa, Susie. They helped me out so much. Wolf as well. But yeah, I mean, shit. Like it was my second when I moved here. It was my second time ever having been to the country. Um, and the first time I was out here, it was only for about a week and a half, and I was filming Cloud9, so I don't really count that. This was also me going to a completely different neighborhood. Because before I was in Gangnam, this was me going over towards, for anybody who knows, like this is more like the Itaewon area where I used to live. So right near the American military base, and that's where all of the casters used to live. We all lived literally, quite literally, on the same street, maybe down a little alley offshoot, but we were all within a 2 minute walking distance of each other. And I remember Doa, he met me at the airport. He helped me, get on the train, get the ticket, and everything like that, and then took me all the way back over to where I was going to be staying. Helped me walk my heavy ass luggage because I mean I was moving my life. I
Yeah.
like quite literally my entire life was being brought over at this point, and yeah, he helped me move everything because we lived at the top of a hill as well. So I had to carry these suitcases up a hill and then get them into Papa Smithy's apartment because I was staying with him for about 3 or 4 days before my apartment was ready. And then we went out and we had dinner, and that's kind of when I got to really sit down with everybody. Um, but it was rough. Like I kind of mentioned, when I moved out here, I had like $100, $200 in my savings account. I was not able to bank much when I worked at Team Liquid. I was on a this was like pretty early days for videography in esports, and I think with some of the layoffs that we're seeing, looking at you, 100 Thieves, that it's kind of reverting a little bit back to how it used to be. Um, but yeah, I wasn't that well paid. They did. I was taken care of as far as having a place to stay, so I didn't have to pay any living expenses and whatnot. But paying student loans, paying off credit card debt, paying for my own food, and wanting to go out and do things in LA, pretty expensive when you're not on a well-paying job.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so things were rough, and I wanted to pay off my debt as quickly as possible. So I was basically investing every spare cent I had into getting rid of my student loans. So when I got out here, I had no money, and I was very upfront about this with all of the other casters. And luckily, Susie Kim was like, "I can loan you 5 million won," which is at the time very much equivalent to about $5,000, and that helped me open a bank account, have some money in my checking account, pay for the cell phone, and as well as a phone plan. Basic things that I needed for my apartment, such as bedding, because we did have one that was they got one that was like mildly furnished. So there's like a kitchen table and like a bed frame and mattress,
Right, right.
but like I needed pillows, I needed
Pillows,
covers,
and yeah,
quilt, etc.
got you.
So I had to buy all of that stuff. If I needed any, cutlery, plates, bowls, cups, etc., water, basic food and snacks to stock the place when I first got out there. She was more than willing to loan me that money, and I was like, "I'm gonna pay you back as fast as I can." um, and luckily I did. Um, but yeah, it was just so front loaded with just like stress. But because I had them around me, I got to know the neighborhood incredibly well because when I wasn't working, which I didn't work for maybe like a week or two after I got out there. Because I think we had, maybe I'm mixing up when we had the Katowice break. I don't remember exactly. Anyway, I had a little bit of downtime before I really started working the broadcast at OGN, and basically every day, like I would just go out with Susie. She would show me around the neighborhood, and then we would go, start at like noon, be walking around, have lunch somewhere, and then around 5 o'clock, Monty, Papa, Doe, they all show up, and we just start hanging out. And then the next thing you know, like you're in a bar and you're just having a great fucking time with your friends, and then we all go home at 1. Um, it was it was great. The amount of support and that just hand holding that I got from them was probably the most important thing. That, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the cash loan was also great, but hand holding and showing me everything, getting me kind of caught up on Korean culture and what is polite, what could be conceived as impolite, teaching me really basic things on like how to order food, how to tell a taxi driver to turn right, turn left, go straight, those sorts of things. Um, was just, it got me so well set up, that I'm eternally grateful for all of those individuals. They're all lovely people.
Yeah, it's a scary prospect moving to a completely different country and not having those kind of people around you is you'd be like, fuck, I am fucked. Like, there's just no way.
I
Especially,
definitely could have done it alone.
yeah,
There's no way.
it's especially in a completely different culture too. Like I said, the alphabet's not even the same. Like like I said, in Europe, it's like, okay, there's some things that are just in English because so many people
Yeah.
speak English and they have signposts that are in English too. You're like, okay, that's fair enough. Like I can pick up a little bit in pieces, and some words
Well,
are like similar, but like Korea, very different.
it is, but I will say is that, and I forget the name. Which king invented Hangul?
Which king? Okay, history lesson.
Who invented
I mean, to be
Hangul?
fair,
I forget.
the Korean language extremely easy to read, just like, and a lot of
Right.
words are Western. They're like handupon is like telephone. You know, like there's
Yeah.
certain things that sound
And the fun, I
similar.
mean, if you go to, but also if you just go to like an American food chain,
Yeah,
all of that shit is just written in Korean, but it's phonetically spoken basically as
yes,
English. So like
exactly.
there's no Korean word for things like Americano. It's just
Yeah,
Americano.
americano. Yeah,
So like obviously, yeah, it's a little bit more spread out as far
latte,
as like
latte.
it doesn't flow quite as much as in English, but it's
Yeah.
very much the same shit. If you go to Subway, it's just a turkey sandwich. Fuck you.
Turkey.
It's shit like that. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the Joseon Dynasty,
There you go.
1443. Dude, like
God bless the Joseon
that
dynasty.
that Dude,
Big
that
up.
king, he was just like, you know what? I'm gonna bring together all the
Legend.
smartest motherfuckers in this country, all the scientists, all the literary geniuses, and we're going to reinvent our language system. And they knocked it out of the goddamn park. Because I learned to read Korean, and I didn't perfect it obviously until I'd say probably like 6 months after I got here.
Sure.
Um, as far as reading, because certain things, like especially like the double consonants, really
Yeah.
kind of messed with me as far as like really learning like how to say that. Um, but it's such an easy language to learn.
Yep.
If you can just look up a guide that will teach you how to like learn to read Korean in less than an hour. So when I
Yes.
got out here, like Susie had sent me that before, like probably like a month before I moved. So by the time I got out here, I had a pretty decent baseline. So when I did go to places like Starbucks or did go to, Subway and a lot more American places, it would take me a while, but I could read what things were and then be able to order them that way. So that was, if like, I mean, fuck's sake, like if tried to live in China, if I had the same support group, but I
Oh
had to
yeah.
try to speak Mandarin,
It's
I would
tough.
have been
Mandarin's,
screwed.
yeah, so different. One of the toughest languages to learn, I think,
Yeah.
if you're a
But
Westerner. I
this
mean,
Korean
maybe
is
there's,
so easy.
yeah, compared to Korean, I suppose. Maybe there are some tougher languages out there that I'm just not aware of. But yeah, Korean reading it is so easy. I was just
Sanskrit.
thinking of another one too. Banana. It's just banana. Like that's
Yeah,
it. It's just
banana.
banana basically,
Yeah.
and it's wild.
Orange is just orangey.
Orange, yeah. Orange juice, juice.
Yeah.
Orange juice, please. Yeah, like at least reading it is very very easy, and being surrounded by the culture too. Like you're literally confronted with it every single day, so it's like hammered into you every day, everywhere you go. So that makes it a lot easier in that
Yeah.
regard. And obviously at that time you were casting LCK way back when with Doa, Monty, Papa. Was Atlas there as well at that time? Or did he
No, we didn't have
come a
Atlas
couple of
until
years later?
2017.
Yeah, 2017. Yeah, so a few years
He
later.
joined in
Yeah,
my second year.
yeah, yeah. Which is quite insane. Like that's quite a big casting crew of people for the region.
Well, I mean, initially, well, so okay, so what really happened there was basically 2016. I joined. It was myself, Papa, Matidoa. They had been doing three people rotating across 5 days, um, which was quite a lot. So because there was obviously days where Doa needed off to do because they were also doing multiple games.
Yeah.
So you know, uh, they were doing things like Hearthstone, Vainglory.
Oh my
I
god, I
don't
forgot.
think
Yeah,
any of them did
Vainglory was out there
HOTS,
too.
but maybe they. I don't think
Yeah.
any. I don't think any of that crew did HOTS. But anyway, so they were doing multiple titles. They're doing 5 days of LCK. They were finally like, you know what? We need to hire somebody else. We need to have at least two duos out here, and then we can all kind of rotate throughout. But widely, it was going to be obviously Monty Doa, myself, and Pop Smithy as a duo. Um, so then we had that, and then 2016 also was the time that we had. Uh, it might have been. I think it was midway through. Yeah, it was midway through the split, or midway through the season when we had the split, and then suddenly there was a SPO TV broadcast as well as an OGN broadcast that were happening simultaneously, but with two different casting pairs on either side.
Yeah.
So we had what we then deemed as the piggyback broadcast, and that brought a whole bunch of memes because SPO TV was really, really rough at the very beginning. Um,
I do remember.
so yeah, there was that whole situation that was going on. But then in 2017, we basically said, well, okay, the SPO split is still happening. Um, Monty and Doa were already prepping to move to LA to work on the Overwatch League, so they made their departure from LCK. They were wrapping up, I think, Apex Season 2, and then basically flying to Los Angeles. So then we figured, well, we have this split. We're no longer doing simultaneous broadcasts. It was 2 days, I think, for SPO, three for OGN. So we only really need one more person to work the LCK. So that's when we brought in Atlas. So it was myself, Papa Smithy, and Atlas that ran that broadcast. And then from there, uh, it continued into 2018, I think. And then we didn't need to expand. And then I fucked off.
And yeah, I was
Joined the Overwatch League.
yeah, I was going to say let's talk about that real fast because you obviously you stopped casting LCK, you stopped casting League of Legends, and you moved to LA for at least short term. Obviously, it wasn't like a permanent thing with Wolf to do Overwatch League. What was the
Oh,
decision
like a
behind that?
fucking eternity.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Those were good times, I will say. I
yeah,
really
like
enjoyed that.
it's a bit strange. Obviously, being I guess it's I know this is temporary because my home is in Korea right now. Obviously, so you were in LA for a little bit, then obviously flew back to Korea. What actually was the turning point for you moving to Overwatch League rather than sticking with LCK at the time?
It's one of the biggest reasons, and it's gonna it's gonna sound a little ironic, I
Yeah, I
guess,
mean
in
that's fine.
hindsight. Um, and I don't think it has anything to do with my ability. I think it has to do with things that have just happened naturally
Okay.
in the world that we couldn't avoid. Um, but one of the things that made me want to move away from League of Legends because I knew that I was going to get an offer. Actually, I already had the offer before I made the decision, I believe, to leave the LCK. I think I got reached out to in like April of 27 or 2018.
Right.
And then I didn't finish LCK until the end of summer, so it would have been sometime in August of 2018. And myself and Wolf knew that we had this offer on the table, and we were working through negotiations and yada yada yada. Of course, those negotiations didn't finish until sometime around like December, because these things always get dragged out. But we knew that we had this offer on the table. It looked good. Obviously, it sucked because we were not going to be able to be based in Korea anymore. We were going to have to go to LA, at least for a year. But the thing that kind of put it over the edge for me was that I wasn't getting invited really to Riot events for League of Legends. I hadn't been invited to Worlds. I hadn't been invited to MSI. The only time that I had been invited to a League of Legends Riot event to cast was for Rift Rivals, which was the first year I believe that they did it
Right.
in
Yeah.
2018. But I had to decline going because I also had, or maybe this was 2017. Either way, I got invited to the Shanghai World Cup, and
Got you.
somebody had to stay behind to cover other League of Legends while the Shanghai World Cup was going on. So that would have been Atlas. He didn't get invited to the World Cup, and then we both got invited to Rift Rivals. But then somebody would have had to stay behind and cover Apex at that point. So basically, I had seniority, and I could have said, "You have to stay behind while I go do two international events and make extra money on top of what OGN pays me," or I could just go to the Overwatch thing and then I'll decline doing the Rift Rivals thing. So we did that. We split one international event each. I stayed behind. I continued to cast Apex. Um, and it made me realize like I'm not gonna get Worlds, you know.
Right. Right.
Maybe I haven't been getting it. Even if I do get Worlds, I'm probably only gonna get like play-ins or something like that. I'm never going to, unless things drastically change, I'm never going to cast the world final of this game. When there are casters like Captain Flowers, when there's casters like Freak, like Quickshot who are in the game, and now Atlas because he's joined the history or
Yep.
the echelon of play-by-plays who have gotten to cast the world final. I was like, you know what? I don't think that
Legend.
this is going to happen for me. I think eventually it probably would have, but it would have taken way longer than I would have wanted to wait, I guess is
Definitely.
the better way to put it. Um, so I said I could see myself casting an Overwatch League Grand Final within a couple seasons of being there. Obviously, not going to be like a season two thing because that was basically poised to be Uber X, given that Monty and Doe did the first season. So we were like, okay, it's going to be Uber X, but then maybe season three, like Wolf and I, we're going to be able to do that shit. Um, Obviously didn't work out that way because then we got the fucking pandemic and everything. So everything went into flux. We were back in Korea, um, and yada yada yada. So that was basically my reasoning because I was just like, I don't feel like I have enough upward trajectory anymore in this game. Whereas I feel like I have so much for myself right now in Overwatch League. I could see myself you know, just shooting up to the top of the standings and being able to do these glorious like top level matches and whatnot. So that was ultimately what made me want to pull the trigger on that. And it was I remember during that time like we'd finish like an LCK broadcast or an Apex broadcast. We'd all go out to a bar, and I would just be stressed talking about this. Because for Wolf, it was like done deal. I'm gonna do this. I think at that by that point, Hots might have been like axed and all of this stuff. So
Yeah,
he
I
was looking for the
can't
next thing,
remember
and like
when that was at.
yeah, so like
After BlizzCon,
obviously like
but
he was big into it because of
yeah.
Apex and everything like that. So he was ready to be full in on Overwatch League, and he was just like, man, like I need you. I'm like, yeah, I know, but like LCK, and like I love League of Legends. This is my first game. It's like trying to get over like that first girl that you fell in love with.
Sure.
Um, but eventually, I was just like, yeah, I think that this is probably better for my career, and then stepped away. So it was a very tough time, very stressful whenever you have to make these kind of just career shattering decisions.
Yeah. Well, you just don't know where it goes, right? You don't know. Not saying that Overwatch was like grass is greener or anything, but the perception was that it was greener, and you're like, well, like you said, I can maybe reach the top of the billing here and get like a finals or at least like a really good playoffs game, which normally takes a while. Like if you haven't been round for a long time, since the very inception of the league. So yeah, it does make sense why you decided to do that. I mean, obviously with Overwatch as well, you were casting Apex the whole time, so I can imagine at least that kind of played into it too, because that was the biggest tournament around that time. Like the best Korean
Yeah.
players, some of the Korean players are still fucking playing. Like it's insane how long that legacy has lasted from Apex, which some people might
Yeah.
not know of. We talk about it all the time, but there are people in the scene right now that probably have never seen Apex or like didn't know it
Yeah.
really existed before Overwatch League.
I mean, I can admit, it definitely is rougher to watch just because the game engine has obviously come so far, but as well
Oh
as
yeah,
just the observer strategies. But some of the greatest storylines in the history of this game were all developed during Apex, and also contenders. I should shout that out. I'm talking about Apex a lot. 2018 was that era of us doing the first seasons of the contenders broadcasts, where Runaway got their first win against Kongdu, yada yada yada. So all that kind of stuff. So all of that, I just say like Korean Overwatch history is so fucking cool. It's so littered with so many familiar faces that if a fan started watching this season, they'd be like, "Oh, this guy's been playing for a really long time."
yeah.
And you can go
Like
back and you
Twilight,
can watch all those.
he's
Yeah,
been playing
I
since
mean,
Apex Season 1. Played on BK
oh,
Stars with Alarm, who was playing main tank at the time. And he's still in the
oh,
league, and he's still a fucking freak at the game. Like, how is that
I
even
still miss
possible?
Slime Twilight.
Yeah. Oh my god.
One of the greatest support duos ever.
It's crazy to think. And the game was a little bit of a more of a mess back then. Of course, as every game goes, everybody gets better
Yeah,
as time goes on. Like pros now would just crush Apex teams, but for the time, it was like the best Overwatch anybody had ever seen. Like it was insane. Do you have any like wacky or like wild stories from like the Apex era? Not necessarily like in the game, but especially with a lot of the Western players coming over. Obviously, they won the first season of Apex, and then Korean Overwatch was like, wait, hang on a second, we're just fucking sick at the game. Do you have any like weird or wacky stories that people might not have heard of or heard about around that time?
there's
I know
one I
you
can't
fucking
tell.
do. Like, I'm asking this, like, you might know it, but I know you do.
Okay.
Pins? Okay,
Mhm.
go. We just took a quick break. We're back. Go.
All right. Sorry about that. Anyway,
All good.
um, okay, I can't name names, but
That's fine.
there was I think people know how impassioned I know the Korean fans can be. But when they got out here, I think this was Apex Season 1, there was a certain player who had gotten a lot of gifts from the Korean fans. And I'll tell you what, this chick was sly because she gave him a gift and then later went on and DM'd this person and said, "Oh my God, I just realized, like, when I gave you that gift, I left my phone in the gift bag. What hotel are you staying at?
Oh my
Like, what's your room
god.
number?" And was trying to like hook up. And to his credit, consummate gentleman, uh, simply told them the name of the hotel and then left the phone with the concierge downstairs and just like
Wow.
not
Based.
gonna try to get involved in this stuff. No, like, very mature move. Um, but there was moments like that. There was obviously plenty of nights of debauchery and just going out and just drinking. Like one of my not to sober up the conversation too much for
No,
anybody
no.
watching, but like one of the greatest things that came out of that era, even though I wasn't really casting Apex until like season 2 when we did the first promotions, and then I did a couple fill-in days. But one of the best friends that I made during that era was Internet Hulk,
Yeah.
because he was always somebody who was down to hang out. He was, he would text us and be like, "I'm in your neighborhood." He'd be saying near like the center of the city, near Seoul Station, and he'd be like, "Oh, I'm in Itaewon right now at Fountain. Do you want to come out?" And I'll be like, "Well, yeah, that's right around the corner from my house, basically. So yeah, I'll see you in like 10 minutes." And there's so many nights where I just go out with him, and we would just hang out, talk about Overwatch, talk about fucking anything really. Um, and nights where he would come over to my apartment and we would just chill there. That I think that's probably like one of the best things that really ever came out of that era, aside from the storylines and the things around the game itself, was that friendship that I had with him. One of the most incredible people that I ever met, and I still to this day miss him absolutely dearly, and I will for the rest of my life. But some of the fondest memories that I have, that ones that I luckily can remember, just given the amount of alcohol that was consumed during those evenings. Um, I'm gonna hold on to those dearly forever, because yeah, getting to know him as well as some of the other players that were out there, it was just so much fun because it felt like, especially when it first kicked off, when we had teams like Rogue, Envy, Fnatic. Remember when Fnatic had a fucking Overwatch team?
Yeah, that
Um,
was weird.
it felt
A
like when
weird
all that
time.
stuff was kicking off, like I was just out like basically every night. It would have been like with a different team while we were
Yeah.
like trying to just get to know these people and get to know these players and whatnot. And we would just be like, oh hey, like Monty was widely the one who was taking the lead on a lot of these as well. And he'd just be like, oh, like the Fnatic guys are coming out for dinner, the Reunited guys are coming out for dinner, come meet us at this place. And then you just get to sit down and talk with people. So like that's where I got to meet so many kind of classic faces of Overwatch now, such as Reinforce,
I,
Cruz,
I was about
Internet
to
Hall,
ask.
Taimu, or all
Johnny.
of those guys.
Yeah. What was your first impression of Johnny when you first met him? Apart from the fact that he's tall as fuck.
And I mean, that was the first
Yeah.
impression.
It's like, what the
Just
fuck? How this
tall as shit and also young
Scandinavian's
as
built
hell.
different. Yeah.
Like
Baby
I
face.
was I was shocked like that I was older than him when I met him, just given the height and everything like that. Um, but Johnny and I actually didn't. I don't remember. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's gonna call me out, but I don't remember hanging out too much with Johnny when he was out here. We definitely met multiple times, but I don't think we ever had like those big nights out. I think Johnny was very much more of a person who was like, I'm gonna focus on the game and I'm gonna be the best
For
Reinhardt
sure.
and all this kind of stuff. And then they got their asses clapped at I Am Gungy by LW Purple, as we called them.
Yeah. Look, this happens a lot with Korean esports and interacting with the rest of the world. They're pretty sick to begin with. The rest of the world, I mean, EU and NA. And then Korean esports, second season, they're actually just insane at the game. It happened with League too, to be fair. Like the first couple of years of League of Legends, Korea wasn't really on the radar for anybody. And then they just turn up and, oh,
And
SKT dominates. Okay, sick.
even then, not really, because it was actually, yeah, no, they did get. Sorry, I just wanted to double check. See, so again, those little micro
Yeah.
memories coming up. It was LW Purple that knocked them out, but it was actually pretty quick, even for League of Legends. I mean, season 2, they were in the grand final
Yeah.
with
Oh, true. Yeah.
Azure
And they lost to
Boston.
Taipei Assassins. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't take very long. And then obviously the next season, that was the rise of SK Telecom, and everybody believed in Royal Club, and it was a 3-0 final. Pretty quick evening.
I mean, yeah, look, Faker's still dominating right now. He had that like slump, where SKT didn't make worlds, but it's okay. I mean, he owns part of T1 as well, which is also ridiculous.
And now it could be happening again in Valorant. We had DRX make it into the top 3, taking down huge teams like FPX, who had won the previous Masters at Copenhagen, I believe. Um, and they've kept the same team. They have added one player who's also cracked out of his mind, but they have the
Oh
same 5
God.
still on that roster. They have the same coaching staff. This could be that time where it's like, okay, 2 seasons. Here comes the Korea win. It's a Riot game. Maybe it's gonna happen again. Time is a flat circle.
That would be dumb stupid as well, because I think correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not keeping up to
Great.
date with Valorant knowledge, but a lot of the NA teams have been mixing and matching, right? Like there isn't too many teams that are going into VCT or like the partnership teams or whatever that are the same.
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
All right.
Okay, right.
I'm like trying to rest my arm, but I can't because there's a cat in the room. But
She's so adorable.
there's been a lot of shuffling. I'd say just not even America, but just across the board.
Right.
Um, even Fnatic letting go with a couple of their players after a somewhat disappointing year. Um, all of Asia, for the most part, is very wild because there's a lot of shuffling that happened. There was Xerxia, who basically stayed together. They got Patty Pan back, and now they're Talon that are coming into it. But there's a ton of new rosters. RRQ, as I mentioned earlier, that's a very brand new team. It's basically like three rookies and then two um, somewhat veterans in Tebatal and Flipscheider that's on that roster. You've got Global Esports, which is the most batshit crazy roster that I've seen basically ever in any game. Um, I would have to pull up exactly where everybody's from, but they have like three players from India, three players from Korea, a Canadian coach or something like that, and like a couple other people.
What?
Like they have 10 people on this roster. They only needed to
Oh
hire
my
six,
god.
but they
Okay.
said, fuck it. Global's in the name.
Yeah.
We're going hard in the paint. And they did. So
Sounds like
there's all kinds
Spark.
of
Spark
stir-ups that
with
are
a
happening.
fucking 12-man roster every season.
That's probably the closest thing is
Yeah.
Spark, with just how many fucking like DPS players that they had
Yeah.
last
Like
season and
why?
whatnot. That's
Yeah.
the closest thing that I could really think of. Because nobody else has done something this crazy. And I can't tell if it's really ill-advised or if it's going to be somewhat incredible. Because it also, out of like 10 of those players, I think five of them are duelist players. So
Like,
it's
when are you going to get playtime? You know what I mean? Like, what, you're
I
going to
don't know.
just put in every duelist player you have and just have this wacky duelist comp?
I mean, they have Bazzi, who the Overwatch crowd will be very familiar with.
Oh,
They have
yeah.
Texture for anybody who was following like Damwon Kia last year in Valorant, and then they also have the number one player from India, SK Rossi, amongst a couple others and whatnot. So like
That's
their
mad.
team is going to be really interesting to see if they can actually make that work. I don't have much faith, but
Are they going to
it'll
speak
be.
English? Like, there's so
Bazzi does.
many. I
Bazzi speaks
mean,
some English. I don't
yeah,
think
like,
Texture does though.
man, that is going to be rather confusing in the comms. Jesus.
They're actually all gonna comm in Hindi. Like
I was gonna say, like, yeah, what? Just
big
pick a language and
curveball.
it's, oh shit, we're coming in Hindi. Oh god, like
Hmm.
only one player knows Hindi. Like, god damn it. It was like, but they're gonna have to common English at least somewhat. Always reminds me of like, well, actually, not kind of like this, but Atlanta Reign this season, who have like they're all Korean players, and then they have Gator as coach and then Hawk on tank, and you're like, so are
Right.
they gonna common English in game? I'd assume at least some of the time when they need to communicate to Hawk, or like Hawk communicates plays, like they can all kind of, you can comment English, but like conveying like high level points, at least in game, it's going to be mainly Korean, and then Hawk's just going to have to
Yeah.
kind of pick up on that. I remember someone saying on Reddit that Korean's not fluent, but like he understands Korean. Obviously, being in a league with a lot of Korean players, you'd kind of have to at that
Yeah.
point. But kind of reminds me
The
of that.
the big thing is just gonna be learning like directional
Yeah,
calls in
yeah,
Korean. So like duye would be like behind,
yeah.
which I guess they wouldn't even say like duye. They just say like dui. So that'd be like behind, um, things like that. So up, which would be in front. So if he can learn things like that, then maybe it could be
Could be
good.
pretty
My biggest
easy.
concern, honestly, would be on the coaching side, just because
Yeah, yeah.
how do you, unless they have like just a really good translator, but even then that like really slows things down. It kind of takes away like the more personal aspect, I guess, of coaching. Um, how are you going to handle that? So who knows? Maybe Gator is actually just like a god of Korean. He's been studying it the whole time. He's just been
I
getting
mean,
ready
yeah,
for
could
every
be.
game that he didn't play in the season. He put 12 hours of Korean study in, and now he's like pretty decently ready to have some like baseline conversations. I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm definitely curious to see how it works out because they have so much talent on that roster,
I know. It's sick.
that it feels like they have to do better than a lower bracket run. That like they need to be able to stay in a winner's side of a bracket, or if they're going to do a lower bracket run, make it all the way to the end,
Yeah.
and then be able to win it. So I'm definitely curious to see how that's all going to play out, and also how some of those players are going to adjust to being in the states because
Yeah.
Lip
Because Lip, right? Lip's not
first time to
been,
my knowledge.
yeah, first time, right? He's not been on like a Western team before. He's always been in
Yeah,
the
he was
APAC
on
region.
Shanghai.
So,
He was based out here
yeah,
in Korea during
exactly.
the 2021 season, and then um, was he 2020 as well? I don't remember. This is one of the times where my little memories are failing
Just,
me.
yeah,
But
that's fine.
and then obviously was
Mine
based in
fail all the time.
Shanghai.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
yeah,
it's
I
kind of wild. At the end of the day, though,
that's one of the things. Sorry, it's one of the
yeah,
things.
yeah,
Like you could take a really cracked player, but they might not necessarily adjust to the new environment that you're placing them in.
yeah, for
So
sure.
even though Lip can deliver in lobby, if he's not feeling fully comfortable, you could still see failure. That was kind of one of the things that we saw with going way back, to Piglet on Team Liquid, because he
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
really put
you're
into
right.
a super comfortable environment. There was
Yeah,
no translator. There was no Korean translator for that team in
which is
2015.
ridiculous. Yeah,
They had two
League of
Korean
Legends for
players
the
that didn't
audience,
know
by the
how
way.
to. Yeah, they had two Korean players that did not know how to speak English at all in Phoenix and Piglet. And while they were able to pick up on it decently well, somewhat quickly, um, they didn't really ever have anybody to talk to at that time,
Yeah,
and there was a lot of discomfort for them in that first half of the year. So the things like that are really, really important. Atlanta, they seem like a fairly well constructed team as far as taking care of their players. So I think that they will have people in those positions to be able to translate for them, to make sure that they're comfortable, that they can be helped to get around and find foods that are very familiar to them, because every Korean is going to start craving kimchi and whatnot at some point.
yeah, for sure.
um, so if they have that, then there's hope. But if they don't, then who knows how this is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, just like you had a support structure, like the Koreans that come over to the States or even to Europe or wherever, they also need that shit too. Because yeah, I can imagine that's quite tough. Obviously, I'm not sure how good Lip's English is. Maybe it's really good and we just don't know. But yeah, I'm not.
Never had
I'm not
cause to
100 percent
speak it
sure.
really.
Yeah, I mean, when is he ever going to speak it? He was on Shanghai Dragons. Like you'd be either speaking Korean there or maybe like Mandarin or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be weird. One question I did want to ask actually, because I think I already know the answer, but if
Hmm.
you ever had the chance to move from Korea, say you had to, say like you just didn't live in Korea anymore, where would you live? And this is like not visa bound or anything like that. Where would you pitch a tent?
This is really a tough one. Um, and I feel like this is something that I've thought about, and the reasoning and the different the places have like changed over the years. But one place that I've always been really infatuated with is Stockholm, which might
Oh,
not be what you were
interesting.
expecting at
Yeah,
all.
not at all. No.
And I'll tell you why. It was the girl with the dragon tattoo, the David Fincher version.
Right.
He made
Okay.
that city look so damn gorgeous, um that I was just like, yeah, I could live there. Or especially in like a village on the outskirts of the city where the
Mm-hmm.
houses are a bit more spread out and you can actually have a house rather than an apartment. Because I really love the cold weather. I really love the winter time, snowboarding and whatnot, even though I haven't gone snowboarding in a couple of years. That's something that I used to do with a lot of frequency when I did live in New Jersey. Um, I really love that weather, and that city just looks gorgeous, clean, non-violent.
Yeah. Well, it's got
um,
some of the lowest crime rates in Europe. I think it has the lowest crime rate in Europe, like Sweden as a
yeah.
country, which is mad.
So
Yeah.
those are all things that I kind of take into consideration, and also one of the big reasons why I love living in Seoul, because the crime rate here is quite low.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's a place that I would love to live. I definitely would never be able to convince my wife to do it though. She loves the summer way too much. She is very much a beach person, and I'm like a let's go up on the mountain kind of person.
Yeah,
Like, let's snowboard.
for
Oh
sure.
my god, it's snowing! I get excited about the snow, and she fucking dreads it. Um, so yeah, that I don't think it would work. But if I just ideally had to live somewhere else, that would probably be the place. But for now,
Okay.
I'm very contented and basically planning on dying in South Korea.
Okay.
So
Well, that's okay. That's not okay. Let's not hope for the downfall of Seth on here.
I didn't say when, it
Yeah,
could
I
be
mean,
like
yeah,
50
but
years from now.
okay, good. 50 years?
Hopefully,
50
hopefully it's
years?
that
Is that it? You only want to live to your like 80? Don't you want to live to
that would
like
make me
100? That'd
80.
be
Okay,
82. There
I'm
you go.
happy to die at 80 if I die in a really cool way.
Okay, yeah. How would you die then? What would the cool way?
I don't know how cool of a death an 80-year-old could
Backflipping out of a
have
plane?
though.
I don't know. You could do anything.
I don't
Backflipping out of a
know.
plane on fire, saving a basket of kittens.
Yeah, I'm like let me be like an 80-year-old who like charges into a burning building. I rescue a bunch of people,
There you go.
but come to my wounds and I'm remembered as a hero.
That's good. They erect a
That'd
statue in
be
your honor.
exactly. Be one
That's
of the
what.
only white people that have a statue in Korea
There you
themselves.
go. He did this backflip into a fucking burning building at 80 years old, off of his fucking Zimmer frame, straight into a building, and just saved 5 people, 5 women and
Immortalized
children.
forever.
It's
Yeah,
perfect.
well, we're gonna hopefully push for 90s
There you go. Well,
and
technically,
still be commentating.
oh yeah, dude, imagine. Look, all I'm saying is the life expectancy is going up every single year. We actually might hit 90, 100, and maybe we're still working. We'll see. Like, imagine that. We'd be so slow, though. That's the only thing. Like, our brains would just slow down by that time, and we wouldn't be able to commentate at all. Like, especially play-by-play. Good
Yeah.
luck.
I'll just have to move to the desk. They have the easiest job in the world.
There you go. You heard it here first. Desk, easiest motherfuckers alive. I mean, true. They're on camera for, like, 2 minutes. 2 minutes? Is that it? We're on camera for, like, the whole fucking game. Desk, you got it easy.
Yeah.
None of them will watch this, so it's all good. All good. All right, I want to give you the floor for like a couple of minutes here. If there's anything you want to kind of shout out or say, or like if you want to like add anything at all, yeah, now is your time as we wrap this up.
Hmm.
Could be literally anything.
Pressure's on. I don't know. I guess just like a big thank you to everybody who has followed and supported me throughout my careers thus far. Um, like I said, we're probably like 8 years professionally now, 11 years in total of casting. Um, and I'm hoping that that's like maybe like a fifth of my total career in this industry. Um, I want to, basically, I was semi joking when I said I'm going to be casting until I'm 90. I really enjoy what I do, and without you guys watching and giving support, I wouldn't be able to do it. So hopefully that continues. I stay in your good graces and continue to give you good matches and some hype moments, so that I can continue to keep doing this. Because I don't have a retirement plan other than just like trying to save money. Um, I have no intent of stepping away from commentating at any point right now in my life. This is basically what I want to keep doing. So thank you to everybody who's supported me thus far. Hopefully, this is just the start of a nice little 50-year stretch of doing commentary. I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna be like John Madden and just keep going until I'm ancient as shit. Um,
Hell yeah.
so that's basically the plan. I do apologize for anybody who's been wanting to see me stream or anything like that. I know that I'm like the worst ever at it. Um, I do have some plans coming up for some streaming, but it's unfortunately going to take a little bit while, and you guys will figure out why in the nearish future.
Okay.
Um, but once I get I think into some regular season groove stuff, I'm planning on doing that, planning some series stuff with, obviously whoever wants to join in, from, my colleagues here, such as Jaws, or if I can get the Brennan Sideshow duo together to
Well,
play
we are doing
something.
Valheim soon, so
Ooh,
there
okay,
you go.
Mistlands.
Yep.
It's good. I definitely want to get on that. I also
Yep.
I want to get everybody in on Project Zomboid. Um,
Oh, okay.
which is way more intense than Valheim, let me tell you. So I'd love to do something like that, but also things with Dane, who knows him. For anybody who knows Dane, my longtime stream mod, one of my best friends, and somebody who actually used to work for the Overwatch League. So we're planning on doing some stuff. It's in the future, so just hold on. You've already been waiting for probably like a year since my last stream or something like that. So just give it a little bit longer. But otherwise, yeah, I look forward to being on your guys' screens soon for more Overwatch, Valorant, and whatever else we can put together. More of that action. So
There you go.
yeah.
All right, I'll leave your stream link down the bottom if anyone wants to check Seth out on his Twitch or Twitter and Instagram
Feel
and stuff
free
like
to
that.
sub. I definitely won't stream, but
There you
you can
go.
sub anyway.
Twitch Prime Seth right now. If you listen to him right now, go on his page and Twitch Prime. Easy game.
Thank you.
I appreciate
It'll
you.
all go into helping me buy a house one day.
There you go. It's funding the retirement, or maybe not retirement. We'll see if he's still casting when he's 80. Thank you, Seth, for obviously coming on, and yeah,
Of course.
catch you guys next time.